followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please rise?
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for all the blessings you have given us, and thank you for the moisture that will result from this generous snowfall that we received recently. Please be with the Public Works crew as they continue this winter to keep our streets clean. We thank them so much for their hard work. Also, we keep the mayor in our prayers as we wish him a speedy recovery from his ankle replacement surgery. We hope to have him back here at Carnegie soon. And finally, please help us continue to work really well as a team to keep moving this city forward. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there changes or additions to the consent agenda? If not, we'd entertain a motion for approval.
So moved, Benninger.
Second, Litz.
Moved by Benninger, seconded by Litz for approval of the consent agenda. Please call the roll.
Council members Benninger,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Knudsen,
Yes.
Litz,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
The consent agenda is approved. At this time, are there any changes or additions to the regular agenda? If not, I would entertain a motion for approval.
Move for approval.
I second that motion.
Kavanaugh, seconded by Knudsen for approval. Please call the roll.
Council members Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Knudsen,
Yes.
Litz,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Benninger.
Yes.
The consent agenda is approved. At this time, we set aside 5 minutes for anyone who would like to address the council at this time. Please come forward and state your name and address, please.
I'm Roger Algersma, 1508 Southdale Drive, Sioux Falls. I'm going to talk a little bit about income and expenditures of the Capital Improvement Fund. I came to a meeting here about a year ago that showed the Capital Improvement Fund's plans for 3 to 5 years and how many hundreds of millions of dollars is going to be spent, and street projects, parks, the whole range of things. And so I know there's quite a bit of money in that fund, and I know that the city gets lots of money from sales tax from people outside the city. Brookings says 41% of their sales tax spending ends up being outside of their city, which is probably mostly here. So you're a fairly cash-rich city, or revenue-rich, compared to anybody else in the state as far as money available. We've built swimming pools and various things before out of that same capital improvement fund, and this bond that's being proposed for $35 million with $18 million interest would mean that $1 out of every $3 you'll be spending on those projects will go to interest rather than other capital improvements. And it's not, I mean, the size of the fund means you're not really totally out of money, and it's set up that you can be flexible and move this project forward to move that project back and so forth. And as far as building an indoor swimming pool, when the vote for the rec center came up, I heard from people from the YMCA that when cities of this size build an indoor pool, the YMCA closes the next year. And so to do a good project that accidentally steps on another good guy, that doesn't really have a great big positive effect when you got a negative coming when you do something that looks like positive. And so the side effects of these projects have to be looked at too, and not just what if the project looks good on its own. I think as far as the way the money gets spent, I thought about coming here a while back to say this, but I didn't. Don't come every time I think of something. But when you spend $1.3 million on a piece of land that, there's property on North Phillips that was selling for $12 to $14 a square foot, and that's near a place that the city is looking at developing. And real estate values go by, real estate people say the value is based on location, location, location. The piece you bought for $30 a square foot is next to Studio One, which is not necessarily a high-class part of town. And so I think the people that got bailed out on that deal, they bought out some viable long-term businesses. I knew a guy that worked for the electrical parts store that got bought out on the southeast corner of that property, and he was concerned that he was concerned how much pressure was put on a business been in the family 50 years to sell out. Basically, they paid double current market value to coerce them to sell. And so when they come here and say, well, we paid this much, we need this much, I think it was a very poor business decision on their part to spend that much in the first place. For them to pay $25 a square foot when it was probably worth 11 or 12 just wasn't wise. And then to bail them out, it seemed like there was an awful lot of money in that capital improvement fund if you can just do that quick for something that's grossly overpriced. So I think that looking at how the money is spent, I mean, there's people here in real estate development, there's people here in government that, this isn't the first time you've seen business deals done. As far as the variable interest rate, which is basically what derivatives is, there's effects. There's more likely, in my opinion, that the interest rate could go up than down. Two reasons for that. One is, in the long run, things balance out. If you look at economics, in the last 5 years, we have had the lowest interest rates we probably ever had, and so the likelihood of it going back down right away isn't very good. The other thing is, when you look at what government's effect is on the economy, a huge spending thing like this war effort is likely to cause inflation. And inflation, one of the ways the government does to slow up inflation is to raise the interest rate. And so when you buy into $60 million worth of bonds at a variable rate and say you don't know what derivatives is, I mean, either you do or you don't. And if you don't, it's not wise to sign on to it. If you do and found out city government works by covering up what you're doing, and agreeing with those kind of methods isn't a good thing. So I think also, I seen in the paper that there was going to be a committee to make rules about these derivatives later on. Well, it's not like going to Pier and making a law, and if it don't work right, you go there next year and change the rules.
Your
What?
5 minutes are up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 50.
Transfer of a 2007 packaged liquor license from Looks Fine Foods, LLC, Looks Meat Market, 6213 South Old Village Place, to Heinemann Hospitality Corp., Looks Fine Foods, to be operated at 6213 South Old Village Place.
Thanks, Denise. Lori Bossman with the City Finance Office. I have items 50 and 51. Denise read through item 50. And item 51 is transfer of an 0607 retail malt beverage license. This is for the Sidewinder, and it will now be called Jackson's Casino 2, and this is at 3613 North Cliff Avenue, including video lottery terminals. I can answer questions on items 50 and 51.
Questions for Lori? Does anyone in the public would like to have input on these two items? If not, council action.
I move for approval.
Second, Costello.
Moved by Knudsen, seconded by Costello for items 50 and 51. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Call the roll.
Council members Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Knudsen,
Yes.
Litz,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Benega.
Yes.
Motion carried 8-0. Item number 52.
Second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, the city, authorizing the issuance of its sales tax revenue bonds in one or more series, authorizing the use of the proceeds thereof to pay costs of, 1, the expansion, renovation, and equipping of the existing library and parking lots at 201 North Main Avenue, 301 North Main Avenue, and 7th Street, right-of-way between North Dakota Avenue and North Main Avenue, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. 2, the acquisition, construction, and equipping of a sports facility on approximately 111 acres known as Harmadon Park, located at the southwest corner of the intersection of Highway 11 and 41st Street in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. 3, the acquisition, construction, and equipping of an aquatic facility which shall include a swimming pool, play area space, and public gathering space on approximately 34 acres at the southwest corner of the intersection of 10th Street and Cliff Avenue, commonly known as Nelson Park. And 4, sales tax funded projects for park-related projects in the capital improvements plan adopted by the City Council on August 7, 2006, pledging a portion of the sales and use tax proceeds of the city to the payment of said sales tax revenue bonds, fixing the terms of such sales tax revenue bonds, authorizing the execution and delivery of one or more supplemental indentures between the city and the First National Bank in Sioux Falls, and authorizing the sale, execution, and delivery of such sales tax revenue bonds to Sioux Falls Library, Harmadon Park, and Nelson Park/Drake Springs Pool.
Good evening. Tom Huber with the Finance Office. What you have before you is the ordinance that would authorize sales and use tax revenue bonds, what we refer to as quality of life bonds. And real briefly, run through some of the specifics of the ordinance. The terms of the bond, or the terms that are within the ordinance, are this would be a pledge of the existing second penny, as well as to be repaid by the existing second penny. Authorized up to $35 million. It will be sized based upon the 3 projects we'll discuss in a minute. Interest not to exceed 6%. Maturity of no greater than 21 years, essentially 20-year bonds. There are no derivatives as part of this ordinance, and the ordinance would provide for either a negotiated or a competitive sale. The current project cost estimates are Harmadon Park, $4.2 million, main library renovation, $11.1 million, Drake Springs swimming pool replacement, $12.4 million, for a total of approximately $27.7 million. And that does include 2008 inflation. The bond breakdown, how we arrived at the up to $35 million, you have about $28 million in project costs, 10% bond contingency of $2.8 million, debt reserve, and the cost of issuance takes you up to just under $34 million if you issue a 20-year term bond. The additional debt reserve for a 10-year bond issuance would take you up to almost $35 million. Why authorize now? As we discussed a little bit at the informational meeting a few weeks ago and the council meeting, we have a limited window for reimbursement of costs that are incurred prior to the issuance under the Internal Revenue Code. So we want to ensure that we meet that window. We also, within the CIP, bond funds are the funding source, and we want to make sure that the funding source is established prior to awarding bids or part of the bids for Harmadon Park and the library renovation projects, which are scheduled to be awarded in April. A couple qualifying points. This is authorization only. The actual estimated time frame for issuance was initially looked at as later in 2007, and the amount is up to $35 million. The actual issuance size will be determined once the projects are further along into the design phase. At that time, then the actual amount of issuance would be set.
Questions of Tom? Kermit?
Yes, Tom, you mentioned about Harmadon Park and the library. There were these time frames we had to meet. Is there anything for the indoor pool, any time frame?
I don't have any specific time frame for the indoor pool parks. No.
Other questions for Tom? Pat?
Tom, on your last slide, you had indicated that if we didn't have to issue the entire $35 million, so if we, next month or a month after that, somehow determine that part of the proceeds, part of what we're planning on spending it aren't necessary, we simply would just reduce the amount of bonds that we sold at that point.
That is correct. This is authorization only, and the issuance will be based upon the project estimates for those 3 projects later.
Other questions for Tom?
I have a question for Don. If I could ask a question, Don. Don, it's possible on May 15th we'll have the citizens voting on whether to have an outdoor pool at Drake Springs or Nelson Park. And let's just for argument's sake say that the voters vote for an outdoor pool. So that's going to result in about $7.5 million difference between the outdoor pool and the indoor pool. Now, it's been mentioned already, we wouldn't have to necessarily spend all the $7.5 million, the difference. We could just bond for the actual cost of the outdoor pool. But there is Part 4 here in this ordinance that says that sales tax funded projects for park-related projects in the capital improvement plan adopted by the City Council. I guess I'm wondering, though, while we wouldn't necessarily have to borrow the $7.5 million, that number 4 would allow us to go ahead and do that. Are there some projects that we might be using the $7.5 million on?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And then I have a question for Woody.
My name is Ray Woodson. I suppose I should identify myself.
Yeah. Thanks, Woody. Tonight I'm going to introduce an amendment to just delete the indoor pool, approximately $12.2 million, and then just go ahead and vote on the other two projects. And then after the vote on the outdoor pool, let's suppose that, well, it doesn't make any difference if the people vote for an outdoor pool May 15th or if they really affirm the indoor pool. Am I correct in my understanding? Then we could go ahead and put that back in time to issue or sell the bonds in September?
Well, you would have a right to introduce an ordinance to amend this ordinance. You know, whether you would have enough time, then that one would be subject to referendum, of course. And so I don't know whether you would get all of it done if that happened by September.
The reason I was asking is just to kind of clarify something you said some time ago, that June was really the last, time when we would be able to deal with this to make sure we sold the bonds. That was the reason I was raising that question.
I mean, it would, early June probably would work from the time of issuance. It doesn't necessarily answer the other problems concerning the need to have the funding source approved prior to the award of contracts under, for accounting purposes. But certainly from my purpose,
yes, right,
from a legal purpose of issuing the bonds, that could be done. That may not solve your other problem on the other projects.
Yeah, I was just concerned, once again, if we just deleted the indoor pool and wait for the vote of the citizens, we could go ahead and authorize the others tonight. Okay. And then right after the election takes place, at that point in time, we would know exactly what the citizens wanted, and we could go ahead and go through the process and have the bonds sold in September.
If that ordinance didn't get referred.
Well, let's say the election would take place on May 15th, and so...
first reading of the ordinance is going to be at the first meeting in June?
Well, we could speed that up.
The last
if we're serious
meeting in
about
May,
it.
I guess, potentially, I mean, as far as having it. And then it would, it would be, second meeting in June, and 20 days, about the 1st of July would be the 20 days referendum period. And if you had an election, that takes about 45 days, so you'd be in the middle of August, or to the end of August before you'd have an answer if it got referred.
Yeah.
So it'd be close. I mean, It would be impossible.
Yes.
Kevin, you had something?
I have a question for Finance, for Tom. Tom, the language previously cited in Roman numeral 4, I know that was explained to it. Perhaps some of us forgot. Could you give us a reasoning for why that language is in there?
Yes, and Mr. Whitson could probably back me up on this as well, but the item number 4 is just a fail-safe to ensure if the design costs, once we had issued, and the cost of the projects came in much less than we expected, that would allow us to be able to meet the spin-down provisions with other projects, again, as the fail-safe. The sizing of the bond will occur based upon the 3 projects.
So one of your slides talked about contingency, other types of costs that really are kind of fluid right now. We have a pretty good idea what the projects themselves cost, but the cost of issuing the bonds, the contingency fees, the cost to do several other things, that's the variable that Roman numeral 4 speaks to.
Well, actually, Roman numeral 4 will deal with after you've already issued, after the bonds have been issued. So the contingency and everything, hopefully we have most of that hammered out. We've got most of the project costs down, and the estimates are fairly good. But you get into the project, and all of a sudden, a couple of the bids come in much less than you initially expected in the design phase. This would allow you to be able to meet those spend-down provisions with other projects.
Because
after
the bond
issuance.
cannot be repaid with a big chunk of money we didn't spend.
Right. You have to meet certain spend-down requirements. Do you want to add anything?
Well, and the bonds aren't going to be callable for some period of time. So, I mean, some of it may be as late as the completion of the project, and you end up there was some contingency in there, and or for various things that happen, the project actually ends up at you don't spend quite all the money, and you want some place for that money to go. And so that's why, typically you say any place that Benny can do it. It was decided that this would be for other park projects, and we had limited it to that. That's a policy question. I mean, where you want to spend the money, if it's left, or just leave it in the bank and for 6 or 7 or 8 years until the bonds are callable.
Other questions for Tom? Dee?
I don't have a question. I just like to say I'd really like to encourage the council tonight to authorize these bonds because, I mean, it was way back in 1996. I mean, that was 11 years ago that we hired an independent study to look at the Drake Springs issue, and they indicated it needed to be replaced, and this is only authorization. I mean, I really would like to see us get this done tonight.
Anyone from the audience wishing to address the council on item number 52, please come forward.
I'm Al Weideman from North Dakota Avenue. I hadn't anticipated on addressing this issue. However, I'm with Mr. Steigers. I do not understand what the big push is on having this money spent. The gentleman there says you can leave it in the bank. I've been in Sioux Falls long enough to know you will not leave it in the bank. You'll find a way to spend it. What all of a sudden has become of Sioux Falls that we have to have Nelson Park, a long-time ballpark, converted to use as a swimming pool. Just because the city of Sioux Falls populace refused to have a big complex there, all of a sudden we have to put a swimming pool there. Not only just a swimming pool, but an enclosed complex, which was already voted down. Thank you.
Thank you. Pat?
Just as a point of reference, sir, that there will be a pool there likely be a pool there in some fashion. We cannot build either indoor or outdoor pool on the existing site because of the subsoils aren't adequate. And our engineers tell us that that's inadequate because of the ground, and so whatever's being proposed will be proposed on the other side of the road at Nelson Park.
Have you spoken to the people that built that pool? it appears as though the people that built that pool said that pool can be repaired for a lot less than $12 million in the existing spot.
Anyone else wish to address the council on this item? If not, council action.
I move for approval.
Second, Costello.
Moved by Knutson, seconded by Costello for approval.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move a substitute motion to adopt the ordinance with the amended copy before you to make the bonds competitively bid only.
Second, Kavanaugh.
It's been moved and seconded. Please address the issue.
This bonding project, it's a simple, easy, clear project. All three items are. So let's match that in a way we bond for this project to give taxpayers confidence in how we do it. I have great respect for Woody Woodson and at Doherty and Company and Gene Rowenhorst and Tom Huber in our finance department. But my difference is really a philosophical one for three reasons. We competitively bid virtually every other thing we do in city government. And we should do the same when it comes to borrowing, especially when we're talking about some of the biggest deals that this city has ever gone into. We have a great bond rating, the solid revenue source to pay it back, and the bond amount exceeds that of other cities that have done it competitive only. And finally, the research and a number of advisors I talked to show competitive bids are the cleanest, most efficient way to bond. So for those reasons, I think that this is the time that we make this a clean, simple process and do it competitively so everyone can see the clear transaction. With that, I urge your support of the amendment.
Any other comments from the council on the motion to amend? Pat?
I have a question for Woody. What's our risk of eliminating the option to negotiate the bonds at this point?
Well, you lose that opportunity if market conditions change so it would dictate that would be the most advisable way to go.
So if market conditions change, what an example of that?
Primarily if we get into an interest rate environment where interest rates are increasing. And, I did have a slide made available if you want to see it, and about competitive versus negotiated. It is a document that was prepared by GFOA, and it lists all the reasons for and against when a competitive sale is advantage and when a negotiated sale is, if you want to see it.
Do you have that with you, Woody?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I realize the print is a little difficult to see. We didn't want to change it. We wanted it as the GFOA had published it. And the one that I would particularly highlight, and the one that we as a company think most impacts this one, is under market conditions, and that's down towards the bottom, about the fourth one from the bottom on the right-hand side, under negotiated, and market conditions for competitive, it says stable and predictable market, and for negotiated, it says volatile or declining market. The point I'd make there is when it says declining, that means the price bonds are going up, interest rates, price is going down, interest rates are going up. And that is what we see as the most logical time that the city might want to consider a negotiated sale as one of the major factors. This whole list has other things in there, but that's the reason we say, depending upon market conditions, primarily that we would look at recommending at that point a negotiated sale.
Go ahead, Pat.
And if we were going to sell these bonds in April, what would you be recommending to us
Competitive
today?
sale.
Okay. Do you have a feel for what the market conditions will be like when we sell these in October?
If I knew, I wouldn't be working here doing this for a job.
So we're putting ourselves at a risk for incurring higher costs.
Higher than necessary interest rates, we think.
By not leaving our options on the table.
That's right.
Yes. Kevin?
Woody, just as you indicated that, a volatile rate environment might cause us to want to negotiate these, wouldn't the purchasers of these bonds, don't they take that into consideration when they bid on these? Same analysis, isn't it?
Well, the problem with the difference on a competitive versus a negotiated is that ahead of time on a negotiated, the underwriter or underwriters that would be selected by the city based upon an RFP process would go out and they pre-find potential buyers. And they know that if they, when the date comes for the sale, that they take those to sale, that they're going to have those bonds for sale. So their sales were selling it. On a competitive sale, people don't know whether they're going to have the bonds. There's not a lot of time spent in pre-selling because the salesman doesn't know whether or not he's going to have bonds for sale or not. And so they take it. And in an interest rate environment, they have to increase their costs because once they get awarded the bids, it may be a day or 2 days or 3 days before they really get in the marketplace to sell those. And so they have to mark up the interest rate to the city to take that risk. And that's why, and that's really why in the late 60s and early 70s, 25% of the bonds were done negotiated and 75% were done competitive. Today, that has gotten to be about 80% negotiated and 20% competitive. And that's because the majority of the marketplace has determined that in a volatile rate environment, when rates are particularly have a significant chance to go up, that the entities, the issuers, can get better interest rates by doing a negotiated sale.
Kermit?
Yeah, couldn't the reverse take place, though? We pre-sell. When we think the markets, the interest rates are going up, we pre-sell, but then they go down.
Well, when somebody's pre-selling, they are not doing it as a set interest rate. Okay. They may have a range, they'll be talking in terms of a range of rates and know very well that if rates go down before the day of sale, that they're going to go down. Those people aren't committed to buying, but they have expressed and determined an interest at that rate. And most of them typically understand that the rate is going to adjust for the market at the date of the sale, and they aren't going to know until that rate is locked in.
So their interest rate won't be locked in until the day of the sale anyway?
Right.
So how's that? Oh, okay. You're just, basically when you pre-sell, you're just trying to get out there and really find buyers.
Find buyers, and in that general vicinity of interest rate, knowing that they are familiar with the issuer, identifying the strengths of the deal and that type of thing, doing the work on identifying the actual bonds that are being offered for sale and trying to identify that.
Vernon, did you have something?
Yeah, two questions, Woody. First of all, who negotiates with the buyers? Is that you or is that Gene Rowan-Horst?
Well, as the financial advisor in this transaction, we would be in the process with the city, with Gene, and advising Gene and the underwriters as to what we think the rate should be, and when the underwriter proposes a rate, we would do an analysis to see whether we agreed with that and whether that is where the market really should be for the bonds on that date.
And talking about the buyers, can you imagine a scenario where Sioux Falls, with an excellent bond rating, a strong revenue source, that there wouldn't be competition to do those bond deals?
Well, keep in mind that you're talking about competition being those that, whether it's the whole amount, but if you're doing $70 million, in this case, let's say it's $30 million, you are only looking primarily at somebody that's interested in buying $30 million worth. Okay, you're not looking at somebody that and they're buying the whole range from 1-year maturities to 20-year maturities, okay? You're not looking at finding buyers necessarily that may have only an interest in the first 5 years worth of bonds, or somebody that's in the second 5 years worth of bonds may have a desire that they have a particular need for something that's 12 years because they may have something planned that they want that money for in 12 years, that type of thing. So, I mean, you are getting, when you do a competitive sale, you're getting on that date, all the people, or the people that respond at least, are those that would buy that many bonds at a certain rate or rates on that date. That doesn't mean that's the only people that may want those bonds. And there may be lots of people that maybe only want $1 million worth of bonds or $2 million worth of bonds, have no desire for $30 million worth of bonds. So you are saying, and now occasionally you will have, even on a competitive sale, there may be 2 firms or 3 firms that may get together and as a group submit that. But you're not identifying the ultimate purchasers of those bonds at that point in time, normally. If you're in a state like Minnesota, you might be, because there might be a buyer in Minnesota that might take a very significant portion of those bonds and take them all, or a significant amount, okay? We typically don't have that type of buyer in South Dakota. And that buyer would not necessarily be interested in South Dakota because they aren't double tax exempt as they would be in Minnesota.
Further questions? On the motion, on the substitute motion, any further discussion? Everyone understand the substitute motion would be to require competitive bids?
I have a comment.
Pat?
You know, this whole notion of competitive versus negotiated has been a tough subject for us to get our hands on. And I would argue that a $35 million bond issuance is a little bit more complicated than buying a piece of equipment where we see competitive bids. If we all truly understand everything that Woody just told us and all the complexities of the deal, and we're certain that the market conditions aren't going to change, then I think you should vote for the amendment. But if you have any doubt about what is happening with this transaction, and you don't know what the market interest rates are going to be in October when these bonds sell, why would we want to handicap our financial advisor who has a fiduciary responsibility to advise us what he sees best interest of the city of Sioux Falls?
Kevin?
Well, I'll try and answer that. I think, you know, if somebody is confused by what's going on, then I'd say they're a pretty average citizen. Somebody has indicated that this is a tool that our financial advisors in the city should be allowed to use when they sell the bonds to their maximum benefit. I have to tell you, if this tool is something that nobody understands and it breeds suspicion among our citizens, I don't believe it's worth using it. I would urge your support of the amendment.
Vernon?
Simple is always best when it comes to spending the public's dollar. And is there a chance that we may not get the best deal in an open competitive bid? Sure. But is there a chance that we may not get the best deal through a negotiated one? Absolutely. That's why I would rather do it clean and simple. So when I'm in the grocery store and someone asks me about this bond issue, I can explain it, they can understand it. I urge your support.
Dee?
I guess my only comment would be that I, in these last few weeks, I mean, I've only heard from one citizen who's opposed to us, you know, authorizing the bonds as we have it set up. So I have not, I really have only heard from one citizen who's against this. So I'm going to be voting to leave the ordinance as it is without the amendment.
Kermit, did you have something?
I have a question about procedure. Vernon made a substitute motion, not an amendment.
Right.
And I wanted to offer an amendment tonight. So should I offer an amendment to his substitute motion and vote on the amendment, or then?
I think you have to wait, if I'm correct, you have to wait till this either passes or fails.
Okay, then at that time then. Okay, thank you very much.
Any further discussion on the substitute motion?
Could you repeat again what the substitute motion is?
Substitute motion is to require competitive bids on the bond sale. Is that correct?
Yes.
Gerald?
I have one question, Woody, that maybe you can help me with. In the 80% number that you used that said that most of the bonds are negotiated currently. Is that typical in a price range that we're looking at here in a $30 million range, or is that all over the board based on?
That's all issues done throughout the country. You don't have a breakdown by size, okay, or for any particular size.
The other question I would have is, in an open or a negotiated market, would you expect that this would be looked at very favorably in the South Dakota market? Would there be South Dakota banks looking at this, or is this going to be something that the whole country is going to take a look at?
Because these will not be bank qualified, I would not suspect that South Dakota banks will be looking at this.
Right. Thank you.
Kermit?
Yes, I guess, Woody, I have another question. I haven't had a chance to really take a look at all the other reasons why you should go for competitive sale, but it looks like there's a lot of other reasons. We're just focusing on one aspect here of why we want to do a negotiating. For example, it says, hey, do a competitive sale when you have a rating of A or better for the credit quality,
yep,
and outlook stable, and type of organ. There's a lot of reasons here to do the
on both sides. And in no one issue are you ever going to find one that goes down all the list, okay? Now, and I don't want to be argumentative, but in this scheme of things, and we talk about, and we know that in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, our sales tax is pretty stable. On a nationwide basis, sales taxes are not considered stable. So when you go out in the national marketplace with a sales tax issue, that is not necessarily a strong, stable. It is not a GO or that type of thing that's listed under a competitive sale, for example. Water and sewer on a nationwide basis are looked at better than sales tax because they figure people need sewer and water. Electricity used to be, but now that you can have competition potentially on electricity, that is not viewed the same as sewer and water. Just like municipal telephone, is it?
Vernon?
Just one other comment regarding advisors. As I said early on, I respect what Woody tells us. I came from a business where we used consultants often, and just because a consultant proposes something doesn't mean you have to adopt it. Ultimately, that decision is us, and we're the ones that bear the burden of deciding what is the best deal for taxpayers and how to explain it to taxpayers. Just because an advisor says that's the best way to go isn't always necessarily the reason why we should do it.
Well, I think just for clarification, this authorization would permit either negotiated or competitive. It is not saying you must do it unless yours is adopted. So we are leaving some discretion up to the financial advisors as to what's going to be the best way to sell these bonds at the time of sale. Is that correct, Woody?
Yes.
Okay. The substitute motion before us is to restrict to competitive bidding on the bond sale. Please call a roll.
Council members Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
No.
Jameson,
No.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Knudsen,
No.
Litz,
No.
Staggers,
Yes.
Benega.
No.
The substitute motion fails with a vote of 5-3. Motion failed. We're back to the main motion. Kermit?
Yes, if I could introduce my amendment at this time dealing with taking the indoor pool out of the bond issue. I remove the Section 3 under the third whereas on page 2 of the Quality of Life Bond Authorization Ordinance. Reduce the bond authorized amount on page 4, third paragraph, from $35 million to $22,800,000.
Motion has been made. Is there a second? Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. We're back to the main motion. Any further discussion on the main motion? Kermit?
Well, I am disappointed that we did not consider the amendment that I just proposed to remove the indoor pool out of the bond issue until the vote on May 15th takes place. And, I think we should have taken seriously here the citizens voting on May 15th and respecting the wishes of the people. But because that amendment didn't become a part, I guess I still feel very strongly that we should respect to the wishes of the people, so I will not vote for this bond authorization.
Kevin?
I don't think that anything this council does tonight is going to disrespect the wishes of the people. Petitions have been filed. If they're qualified, we will have an election. Nothing is going to be sold until well after that election is taken place. And this is not some conspiracy. This is not some 11th hour presentation. This was brought to this council last summer in the mayor's budget address. We've known about it for quite some time.
Vernon?
One thing also I wanted to address that I've had a couple questions from taxpayers about, will these projects raise taxes? No, they will not. The council has budgeted for this. We simply are borrowing through bonds to cash flow the projects up front. So that's some confusion out there, I think, in the public that we need to clarify.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Well, I guess if we want to clarify, we should also point out, too, that, we're committing our second penny to these bonds. And, of course, the second penny in the past has also been used for streets. And we have the development community talking about the backlog of streets that we have here in Sioux Falls. I think it's what, $35 million backlog. And so here we are using some of that money that could have gone for new street construction for this.
Kevin?
Well, Councilman Staggers made note of the fact that the $35 million bond with interest over X number of years is going to indebt us to some $52 million in second penny sales tax expenditure. What he failed to tell you was that that is out of a total second penny sales tax over the next 20 years of an estimated $1.4 billion. So the payments on this bond represents about 3% of the second penny sales tax revenue.
Any other comments? We're back to the main motion, unamended. Please call the roll.
One for the comment is that, our sales tax is growing. I think our growth for 06 was, 7%? And on an operational budget of $100 million, that's $7 million that's going to come in. We have enough money to cover this cost.
Well, we're talking about all the money we're bringing in, but of course we have to keep in mind we're borrowing all this money too. And I guess myself, and I think also many citizens, are getting concerned about, we are taxing a lot. Now we're beginning to borrow a lot. And of course we're spending a lot here. And I'll tell you, I don't really appreciate committing future generations to paying off all this debt that we're now starting to accumulate. I'm not happy that my children and my grandchildren are going to be saddled with some of this debt, because I think we could do some of these projects right now without bonding. We could add on to the library without bonding. We could finish up Armenden Park without bonding. But no, we're going to put it on future generations.
Please call the roll.
Council members Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Knudsen,
Yes.
Litz,
Yes.
Staggers.
No.
Benega.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-1. Item number 53.
Second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by eliminating the ambiguity which directs parties that they may appeal their decisions to circuit court, and inserting the aggrieved parties may have their decisions subject to judicial review as provided by law.
Gary, would you like to address this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This particular ordinance goes through our administrative process, and wherever the word appeal is used, substitutes judicial review. This is consistent with an opinion that was issued by Judge Surska of our circuit court in December. You'll note also that for some licensing procedures, we've made it clear that the people do have a right to appeal the denial of a license through the administrative appeals process, and that language is also in this ordinance.
Questions for Gary? Kermit?
Yeah, I remember Judge Surska. I was in the courtroom when he was talking about some of these issues. And I guess one thing that I was very concerned about is that this had been going on for a number of years, telling citizens they could go and to circuit court, and that was not the case at all. And, you know, what we're doing right now is we are trying to correct a problem that Judge Surska talked about. But I wish we wouldn't do it right now, because in the process of doing this right now, we're diminishing the rights of the citizenry here on appeal. What we should be doing is trying to get the state legislature to make changes here to allow the citizens to go to the circuit court.
Further comments on item number 53?
I move for approval.
Well, IL has, yeah.
Does someone in the audience wish to address this item? Please come forward.
Yes, I'm Whiteman again from North Dakota Avenue. Miss Joni Cutler had an addition to put into the legislator, and I haven't been able to get a hold of her and find out if that was done. It was my understanding that everybody out there was in approval of it, but because of the time constraints, it might not have been added into this year. However, I don't follow this second reading here as adjusting or adjudicating the problem that the city has. What about the monies that they scraped from the people by not being allowed to go into the circuit court? I happen to have been one of them. I have the class action lawsuit instigated against the city because I was not allowed to go to the circuit court. And that was told to me by Judge Surska. I paid the fees to go into the court, and I was rejected because there's no legislative action. It's my understanding you can't do this. It takes a legislative action, not an ordinance, to correct your problem.
I would defer to Gary on that.
Actually, what this amendment does is bring our ordinance into compliance with existing state law. It does not take anything away from anybody, nor does it add anything. It brings it into compliance with the law as it is now written.
Okay. Further comments on item number 53? Council action?
I move for approval.
Second, Brown.
Moved by Knudsen, seconded by Brown. Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Council members Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Knudsen,
Yes.
Litz,
Yes.
Staggers,
No.
Benega.
Yes.
Motion carried, a vote of 7-1. Item number 54.
Second reading, major amendment 2006-12-01, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending Chapter 15.45.070, Plan Development Districts, allowing changes in land use as reflected in the revised sub-area regulations. West 77th Street and Minnesota Avenue. Planning Commission recommends approval.
Mike Cooper, Planning and Building Services. This is an amendment that's being requested by the current property owner and developer of this area. It's approximately 1.3 acres in size, and Stencil Construction is the applicant. When this property was originally zoned, there was a limitation put on the allowable signage for future offices of 32 square feet. Normally, an office zoning allows you up to 48 square feet, depending on the size of the building and the amount of street frontage. Now that the developer has an actual development plan, including the proposed size of the building and buildings and the number of tenant spaces, there's a desire to take that restriction off the zoning and allow this development to use the same office signage area as other similar projects. And so that's what the purpose of the amendment is tonight. The developer is still asking that we limit electronic message boards and that we limit signage facing to the west because of the adjacent residential uses. And then also expose neon lighting is not allowed. And so these are changes that have been brought to us by the applicant. And the Planning Commission has recommended approval of these changes.
Questions for Mike? Kermit?
Yeah, is the applicant here tonight?
We asked the applicant to be here because we knew that you were
Yes.
going to, and I don't believe that they were able to be here for whatever reason.
Okay, so that was Stencil then?
Yes, Stencil Construction. Paul Reynolds would be the contact person.
Any insight as to why they would go for initially 32 square feet when they could go 48?
I think just because it was something new in the area, and again, they didn't really have a good idea of what the building sizes were going to be and the number of tenant spaces.
You said Paul Reynolds?
Yes. That would be your contact person.
Thank you.
Move to approve. Brown.
Second, Litz.
Moved by Brown, seconded by Litz for approval. Further discussion? Please call a roll.
Council members Brown,
Yes.
Costello.
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Litz,
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Benega.
Yes.
Item 54 is approved, 8-0. Item number 55.
Second reading rezone 2006-10-24, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at West 34th Street and North Career Avenue to allow a mixed-use residential and office subdivision and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is a request that's part of the Grasslands addition, and we're modifying the zoning boundaries based on a more recent subdivision plan that's being presented under item 65 later on tonight. What we're doing is we're changing the boundaries of office and residential to conform to the new proposed street and lot layout. And the Planning Commission has recommended approval of this change.
Questions of Mike? Anyone from the audience wishing to address item number 55? Council action?
Move for approval, Benninger.
Second, Litz.
Moved by Benega, seconded by Litz for approval. Please call a roll.
Council members Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Litz,
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Benega.
Yes.
Motion carried, 8-0. Item number 56.
Second reading, rezone 2007-0110, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at East 26th Street and South Dakota Highway 11 to allow multifamily housing and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is a request that is being submitted by Van Buskirk Companies. It's approximately 22 acres of land area. We've done an annexation and a land use amendment. The zoning that's being proposed on this property would allow for multifamily housing, and this is in conformance with our future land use plans, and the recommendation by the Planning Commission is to approve this change.
Questions of Mike? Is there anyone from the audience wishing to address this item?
Good evening, Steve Van Buskirk Companies, 5101 South Nevada. The thing that Mike can't tell you because we don't have it all set up quite yet, but this project over here is going to be with the Good Samaritan Society, is going to build a facility similar in nature to what they've got over there on 57th Street, kind of over in the Louise area. The yellow area is generally going to be the twin home area, and then the hash mark area right below that, that's going to be the larger assisted living center. So their plans are 5 years away before anything really gets built. We'll be doing the sales shortly to them, but they'll bring back a development plan in the future. So it's kind of down the road, so we can't show you all the pretty pictures tonight other than getting the zoning done. But
Any questions of Steve? Thank you.
Move for approval, Benninger.
Second, Litz.
Moved by Benega, seconded by Litz for approval. Please call the roll.
Council members Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Litz.
Yes.
Staggers.
Yes.
Benega.
Yes.
Motion carried, 8-0. Item number 57.
Second reading, rezone 2007-01-02, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at East 57th Street and South Southeastern Drive to allow 2 fourplex and 1 duplex residential condominiums and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is an application submitted by Clint Ackerman. It's about 1.5 acres of land area. The original zoning that the developer submitted allowed office uses on this property, and now the developer, due to market conditions in the area, is requesting that we change the zoning from office to residential to allow the fourplex and the duplex residential development.
Questions of Mike? Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address this item? Council action?
I move for approval of item number 57.
Moved by Knutson, seconded by Litz for approval of item number 57. Please call the roll.
Council members Brown?
Aye.
Costello?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Litz?
Aye.
Staggers?
Yes.
Benega?
Yes.
Motion carried 8-0. Item number 58.
Second reading, rezone 2007-01-03, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 2113 and 2117 South Norton Avenue to allow expansion of institutional land uses and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is a request that's being submitted by the North American Baptist Seminary. They are in the process of relocating their institutional facilities just east of Augustana College. And this is an area that we've previously looked at vacating a street right-of-way. This is between 29th and 31st Street. It's adjacent to other institutional zoning. And this would change 2 lots from residential to institutional for the seminary classroom and office space.
Questions of Mike? Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address item number 58? If not, council action.
Move to approve. Brown.
I second that motion. Knutson.
Moved by Brown, seconded by Knutson for approval of item number 58. Please call the roll.
Council members Brown?
Yes.
Costello?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Litz?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Benega?
Yes.
Motion carried 8-0. Item number 59.
Second reading, rezone 2007-01-06, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, rezoning property at East Madison Street and North Dubuque Avenue to align the zoning with the approved street pattern and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is a development called Canterbury Heights, and we've previously approved zoning on this property. The applicant is now requesting to change the southern end of this, just north of Madison Street, to allow the future development of 4-unit structures, and there would be a total of 80 units constructed in this area. Just today, we were contacted by some property owners on the west side of Dubuque Avenue with some questions about this development, and the developer has asked that we defer this for 2 weeks so that we can continue to talk to the neighboring property owners. So the request is a 2-week deferral to the March 19th City Council meeting.
Is there someone who wishes to make that motion?
So moved. Let's.
Second, Costello.
Moved by Litz and seconded by Costello to defer for 2 weeks. Please call the roll. 2 weeks from today, which would be the
19th.
19th.
Council members Brown?
Yes.
Costello?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Litz?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Benega?
Yes.
Item number 59 is deferred. A motion 8-0. Number 60.
Second reading, rezone 2007-01-12, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, rezoning property at West 60th Street North and North Career Avenue to develop an institutional campus of higher learning with accessory uses and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is the future home of the University Center development. It's approximately 250 acres in size. And We've had presentations to the council as far as what the future long-range plans for this property would be. This property is bisected by Kerr Avenue. On the west side is Marion Road, and on the east side is Interstate 29. We have 60th Street on the north side and 54th Street on the south side. The University Center campus plan is really going to be divided into two segments. On the west side of Career Avenue will be the educational classroom focus, and then on the east side of Career Avenue will be the research and technology center focus. So the zoning that's being presented to you tonight divides this property up into two sub-areas, and it has the different types of uses that are allowed. And this is based on all of our meetings that we've had with the University Center representatives. And the recommendation is to approve this zoning change.
Questions of Mike? Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address item number 60? Council action?
Move for approval, Benninga.
Second, Kavanaugh.
Moved by Benninga, seconded by Kavanaugh. Please call the roll.
Council members Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Litz,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Benninga.
Yes.
Motion carried, 8-0. Item number 61.
First reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by adding thereto a new Article 7 to Chapter 39 of the Code of Ordinances entitled Reduced Taxation for New Commercial Structures or New Commercial Residential Structures thereto, or additions, renovations, or reconstruction to existing structures located within the city's designated area of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
And tonight, we're introducing this proposed ordinance for your consideration, which would establish our neighborhood conservation target area as a tax abatement eligible site. And just to kind of backtrack a little bit, last summer, we started a very comprehensive code enforcement strategy within the area that we called Phase 1, which was between 10th and 12th Streets, west of Minnesota Avenue to Coble Avenue. And then we expanded that into Phase 2 code enforcement, which was from 9th Street to 16th Street, from Minnesota Avenue west to Coble Avenue. And late last year, we made a presentation to the City Council on our neighborhood conservation program with kind of an overview of Phases 1 and 2, and then more of a discussion on what we're calling Phase 3, which is the redevelopment phase. And as part of our presentation to you at that time, we had a number of action steps that we wanted to continue to pursue. And in the last slide that we presented that day, the summary of activities for Phase 3 redevelopment, the first bullet item was a redevelopment committee. We have put a committee together. It's approximately 30 people that we've involved in that or started to involve in that process. And it includes property owners within the neighborhood, residences, business owners. It includes financial people, nonprofits. City Council member Litz is a member of the committee. So there's a very good cross-section of community involvement in that committee. And we just started our process of now looking at a more detailed redevelopment plan, which was the second recommendation as part of our Phase 3. And then the third bullet point that we presented was a tax abatement ordinance, which is what we're introducing to you tonight as one of our ways of incenting property owners within this neighborhood to do two things: to invest in new construction and also to invest in upgrading existing properties. This ordinance is very similar to the one that we currently have downtown. Any investment of $50,000 or more would be eligible for the tax abatement, the 5-year abatement, and it applies to commercial as well as commercial residential, which is defined as an apartment unit of 4 or more units, or apartment structure of 4 or more units would be eligible for this program. So we're not just targeting potential redevelopment of commercial or office, we're also targeting existing property owners to look at upgrading their rental units, because we do want to maintain or even possibly increase the amount of affordable housing within this neighborhood code and conservation area. So this is an ordinance that has been drafted by the city attorney's office, and as I said, it's modeled after the one that we currently use in the downtown area, and we've limited it to the specific boundaries of our neighborhood conservation program area. And I don't know if you have any other questions
Any
at
questions
this time.
for Mike? Kevin?
Mike, first of all, I like the idea. I think this is something that people have been asking for. My concern is this. Why are we limiting it to just commercial or commercial residential? What about homeowner, single-family homeowner?
I'll let Gary.
The reason we have to limit it and we can't include residential property is because state law does not allow us to include residential property. It does allow us to include residential commercial.
The second question is, why are we limiting it to this area alone? Would we not be better off expanding it to the entire city? Or at least more core areas of the city?
Right, and I guess I'm taking a conservative approach to kind of get the ball rolling here. Certainly, there are other neighborhoods that we could come back and do the same thing, the same designation, but I just felt that this was maybe our next priority area to address. But the intent would not be to, well, it's really a policy that the council needs to establish, but we don't need to say that we're only going to allow this particular neighborhood to be eligible for this program. There are other steps that we're going to come back with. We've talked about through community development. We currently have a program where homeowners can qualify for assistance to rehab single-family homes. In our other neighborhoods, we've done neighborhood revitalization projects, including major rehab of existing single-family structures. We've also gone in and cleared out dilapidated single-family structures and put in a new affordable housing for families. We've talked about bringing back a program that would provide either loans or grants for rental rehab projects. We've done that years ago, but we haven't done it recently. So there's a number of initiatives that we hope that we can come back with, but we thought that this was important to get at least this next step before the city council, and hopefully we could initiate this by spring of 2007. So the intent is not to say we're done with the tax abatement ordinance.
Kevin, you have another question?
Since we cannot use, by state law, the abatement process, I'd be interested in knowing what our history has been with regard to the other projects that you mentioned for owner-occupied residences. I'd be curious as to just how many of those we've actually funded and whether or not we have the capacity to do more.
Okay, and I think Randy Bartunik is gone, but I will get that information for you before we have second reading.
If I could, just one more question. If this council were inclined to expand this project, this program, to other core areas of the city at second reading, would you have a recommended boundary?
We sure could.
All right, thank you.
Vernon?
Mike, I'd encourage you to be aggressive on this.
Okay.
I'd say the sky's the limit. We can always scale it back. This council has had a history of being very supportive of affordable housing projects, especially reinvesting in the core area. And I'd encourage, through community development, that we look at the Community Reinvestment Act that requires banks to invest in affordable housing. I think there'd be money on the table there that we could do. So dream big on this. You've done a good job on this project, and let's see if we can expand it even more.
Gerald, did you have something?
My comments are similar to Vernon's comments. I guess my question, again, was the minimum standard of $50,000 or a fourplex. Again, as Kevin and Vernon have suggested, I think that there are other potential duplexes or whatever that would fall underneath that probably would benefit from that same program. And I have a gut feeling that the council would recommend and approve something that's a larger policy decision than what you recommended.
Yes, Bob?
Most of the questions that have been asked here tonight and suggestions were considered at our meeting the other day, and I'd like to say we had a great turnout. We had some of the better minds in Sioux Falls were present there. A lot of check writers were there, and a lot of these things are going to happen. But as we looked at the map of the areas that we already were focusing on, it almost seemed overwhelming, and some people did raise that. And so I think the original intent was just to narrow our focus until we had a track record of success, and certainly expand the areas.
And I think if I understand this correctly, the city council, upon your recommendation, can designate any neighborhood as a conservation neighborhood.
Yes.
Pat?
Mike, last time, I think it was in the fall or late summer, we amended the property tax abatement program, and at that time, we had asked for an analysis of previous property tax abatements in the core area and outside. We still haven't got anything back on that.
Okay.
And I'm, very supportive of what you're doing here, but since we're talking about property tax abatement.
That's a friendly reminder.
Thank you.
Okay, I got the message.
Any other questions for Mike? Vernon?
I would be interested in knowing the single family rehab projects and community development. I don't know if I have the name right, but what we've got budgeted for that, because this council in past years has wanted to put more money into that. If you could help provide that.
Yeah, I'll work with Randy Bartunis to get those numbers.
And then my second question is, given the way the discussion has gone, do you need more time than one more week to put this together?
I think its second reading is 2 weeks.
Okay.
That's enough time.
Okay.
And I appreciate the interest and the support by the council, and it's, we just feel that there is a lot of support to go into these neighborhoods and provide incentives and provide guidance for making sure that they're safe and that the property owners do maintain their property, and working with not only the property owners but also tenants. So there's a lot of things that I think this committee and you will be able to accomplish in the future to turn some of these areas around.
Very good. Kermit?
Yeah, Mike, can you comment on changing the definition of commercial residential structure just to rental property?
No, the current definition in state law of commercial residential is 4 units or more.
Okay.
That's based on the current definition in state law.
Does state law provide for rental or rental property being covered by this, Gary? Or?
Yes, we researched it. Karen Leonard in our office researched it and felt comfortable that we could do commercial residential.
But I mean, just flat out rental. I mean,
no, it has to be commercial residential, which is defined as 4 or more units.
4 or more units, yes.
Any further questions of Mike? If not, motion to set the date of hearing for March 19th.
So moved. Second, Brown.
Moved by Kavanaugh, seconded by Brown, to set the date of hearing for March 19th. Please call the roll.
Council members Brown?
Yes.
Costello?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Litz?
Yes.
Staggers?
yes.
Benega?
Yes.
Motion carried 8-0. Item number 62.
A resolution establishing Sioux Falls City Council goals and objectives.
D?
I would like to just share with the world what the council has decided upon for a mission statement and vision and so forth. We've been working on this for quite a while. It's very much a collaborative effort and lots of good input. Again, we have chosen to make this our mission statement: to protect and enhance the quality of life for all residents by providing efficient and effective customer-focused services through establishing policies and appropriating money for those policies which are implemented by the administration. And our vision is this: City of Sioux Falls will be a vibrant, attractive, and safe city recognized as a model community which takes pride in its history, diversity, and environment, promotes downtown as a community focal point, provides visionary and creative governmental leadership, is an economic center for Minnehaha and Lincoln counties, promotes an excellent business environment, and values its public employees and recognizes their achievements. And then for goals and priorities, our main goals and priorities fall under these categories. A, public safety. B, infrastructure. C, quality of life. D, responsiveness of city government. And E, financially stable city government.
Any comments, additions, or changes?
Move for approval, Benninga.
Second, Kavanaugh.
Moved by Benega, seconded by Kavanaugh for approval. Item number 62. Please call a roll.
Council members Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jamison,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Litz,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Benega.
Yes.
Item number 62 is approved, 8-0. Item number 63.
A resolution amending the future land use map as part of the Sioux Falls 2015 Growth Management Plan, petition number 2007-01-17 at East 73rd Street near Cliff Avenue, from an allocation of future single-family land use to an allocation of multifamily future land use.
This is an application by Dunham Companies as part of the Diamond Valley Edition. It's about 9 acres in size, just under 9 acres in size. The original zoning allowed single-family residential development on this particular parcel. The developer is now proposing to construct a single-family attached condominium, and based on our zoning designations, this would require the amendment which is being presented to you tonight, and the recommendation is to approve this land use amendment for single-family attached residential development.
Questions of Mike? Anyone in the audience wishing to address this item? Council action?
Move to approve, Litz.
Second, Kavanaugh.
Moved by Litz, seconded by Kavanaugh for approval. Please call roll.
Council members Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jamison,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Litz,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Benega.
Yes.
Motion carried, 8-0. Item number 64.
A resolution amending the future land use map as a part of the Sioux Falls 2015 Growth Management Plan, petition number 2007-01-09 at southeast corner of East 26th Street and South Dakota Highway 11, from an allocation of multifamily and single-family residential future land use to an allocation of multifamily and commercial future land use.
This is about 30 acres of land. Van Busker Companies is the applicant. It's located just north of the previous item that we acted on tonight to change the zoning. This is a continuation of their development. They've now acquired this property. It has been annexed, and we're now being asked to approve this land use amendment based on a more of a current proposed development plan. And this would allow the property to be rezoned based on the multifamily and commercial land use proposals, and the recommendation is to approve this land use amendment.
Questions of Mike? Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this item? Council action?
Second, Benninga.
Move for approval by Costello, seconded by Benega. Please call a roll.
Council members Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jamison,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Litz,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Benega.
Yes.
Motion carried, 8-0. Item number 65.
Preliminary subdivision plan, 2006-09-16, Grasslands addition to the city of Sioux Falls, Minnehaha County, West 34th Street and North Career Avenue. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is the subdivision plan, preliminary plan for the Grasslands addition. It's about 34 and a half acres in size. And this is an area that we previously acted on tonight, at least the corner, in changing the zoning boundaries. This is going to be a combination of different residential densities as well as office uses. And it's adjacent to a future drainage way that's going to be developed as the Cherry Creek Greenway with a trail and other recreational uses. We've been working with the developer on the street layout, the lot layout, and utilities into this area. And the city staff, as well as the Planning Commission, are recommending approval of this preliminary plan for the Grasslands addition.
Questions of Mike? Anyone in the audience wishing to address this item? Council action?
Move to approve Litz.
Second, Brown.
Moved by Litz, seconded by Brown for approval. Please call the roll.
Council members Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Litz,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Benega.
Yes.
Item number 65 is approved, 8-0. Item number 66.
A resolution including certain contiguous territory within the corporate limits of the city of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, annexation 2007-01-06, Jansmick, 54th Street North and I-29.
This is a petition by the property owner requesting annexation. The property is approximately 19 acres in size, and it's located just north of 54th Street North, between Interstate 29 and Westport Avenue. This is an area that we've been working with the developers on business park, and a portion of this will be looked at as far as economic development type land uses. And this is an area that we can provide future utilities and other services. And the staff recommendation is to approve this request for the annexation.
Questions of Mike? Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this item?
Move for
Council action.
approval, Benega.
Second, Brown.
Moved by Benega, seconded by Brown for approval. Please call the roll.
Council members Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Litz,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Benega.
Yes.
Item approved, 8-0. Item number 67.
A resolution reappointing an audit committee member to the audit committee.
Kevin?
Mr. Chair, I can address that. The audit committee ordinance that we passed last year calls for a specific makeup of the committee, and three of which need to be outside persons, certified public accountants. The committee also, the ordinance also requires that they serve staggered terms. The initial terms were determined by drawing lots, and Ann Oppegard got the short one, so she is serving a one-year term, and that expires, I believe, sometime this spring. And we are asking for her appointment to a second term. This one would be 3 years.
Is that a motion?
I would move for approval.
Second.
Moved by Kavanaugh, seconded by Litz for approval. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Council members Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Litz,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Benega.
Yes.
Motion carried, 8-0. Item number 68.
A resolution authorizing the city of Sioux Falls to gift to the Sioux Falls School District various portable radios.
Good evening, Doug Barthel, Chief of Police. Some time ago, we switched over our department to the new state radio digital system, and with that, we've got a number of surplus analog radios that we no longer have a use for. We've found a use for a few of them and surveyed all of the other city departments, and no one has a use for them. The system basically is shut down, so they're more or less a walkie-talkie and are only good for short-range distances. The school district would like to use a number of the radios. They could use them within their schools for the teachers and staff to be able to communicate back and forth, and our school resource officers would also be able to talk with them as well. So in order to get enough radios for the 30-some-odd schools, they need about 125, which is what this resolution is for, is to gift 125 to the school district.
Questions of Doug? Kermit?
Yeah, Doug, what would the total cost of the gift be?
Well, I guess it depends. They'd be put up for auction. Most of the radios are probably 10 or more years old. Probably best guess, if we got top dollar, maybe 200 apiece.
And we're giving out 120?
125.
125.
Yes.
Further questions? Council action?
Move for approval, Benninga.
Second, Kavanaugh.
Moved by Benega, seconded by Kavanaugh. Please call the roll.
Council members Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Litz,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Benega.
Yes.
Motion carried, 8-0. Item number 69.
A resolution authorizing the City of Sioux Falls gift to the South Dakota Game, Fish, and Parks Department portable and mobile radios.
Same situation here, except a much smaller number in this instance. This is for Palisades State Park. They had requested surplus radios, and we would like to gift to them 8 of our portable radios and 5 of the mobile radios, which are the ones that mount in the cars.
Question to Doug. Kevin?
Not a question. I just have to commend you, Doug, for sticking around being on item 69 on agenda tonight.
I don't know if we've ever gone that high or not.
Second.
I second that motion.
Moved by who? Kavanaugh, seconded by Knutson for approval. Please call the roll.
Council members Brown,
Yes.
Costello,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Litz,
Yes.
Staggers,
Yes.
Benega.
Yes.
Motion carried, 8-0. Is
Move to
any-
adjourn.
Second. Is there a second?
Kavanaugh, second.
Kavanaugh, seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think so. I don't know.